Ever stop to think about who's actually steering the ship of humanity? We're bombarded with narratives, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely. Cosmic battles, hidden protectors, these shadowy programs people talk about shaping our world.
Mm.
Um, it's a lot to process.
It is, yeah. And that's precisely what we're diving into today.
Think of this not just as a discussion, but really a focused exploration. We're looking at information you, our listener, have brought forward. And we have some truly fascinating and, well, contrasting perspectives.
Exactly. So on one side, we've got the intricate spiritual cosmology of Ashayana Deane's freedom teachings, delving into energy blueprints, multidimensional guardians, a huge timeline of ascension.
Right, Keylontic Science. And then contrasting that, we have the gritty firsthand accounts from numerous secret space program whistleblowers.
People like Penny Bradley, Daryl James, Leah Akrish, Arkham Robb, the list goes on.
Right. Time Writer, John Whitber, Tony Rodriguez, Max Spires, Donald Marshall, they're sharing direct experiences.
Yeah.
Clandestine operations, mind-bending tech, ET interactions, the works.
So our mission today really is to put these two radically different worldviews side by side.
Yeah, we're going to unpack their core ideas, see where they might possibly align.
And maybe more interestingly, where they just clash head on.
Consider this your fast track, maybe,
Okay.
to grasping some incredibly complex concepts.
Yeah.
And potentially uncovering some truly surprising realities about what might be happening just beyond our everyday awareness.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with something really fundamental, the energy template of consciousness. Ashayana Deane lays out this concept of the Kathara grid.
Yes, the Kathara grid.
Mm-hmm.
According to the Freedom Teachings, this is presented as like the fundamental energy template of consciousness.
Correct.
It's a 12-sphere interconnected structure, sometimes called the true tree of life.
12 spheres? Signets.
Exactly, signets. And each one is said to correspond to a strand within our DNA.
Ah, okay.
The core idea is, by understanding and engaging with this grid through specific spiritual practices, you can realign yourself with your original divine blueprint.
Leading to healing and eventually ascension.
That's the idea, healing and ascension.
Mm.
And it's not just for humans. It's proposed that planets also have these Kathara-based energy bodies.
Okay, that's the Keylontic perspective, this foundational energy structure, supposedly everywhere. Now, when we turn to our SSP whistleblowers, what do their experiences tell us? Do they talk about anything like this sacred geometry?
Well, what's immediately striking is it's just not there.
Not there at all.
No mention. Their experiences seem firmly rooted in the physical realm. The tech they used, the places they went, the missions.
Right.
When they talk about healing or, physical augmentation, it's always tangible stuff.
And that's advanced.
Advanced medical devices, regeneration tanks, cybernetic enhancements, physical interventions.
So not energy work based on a grid.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental building block of reality in one view.
Yeah.
Totally absent in the direct experiences of the other.
Wow.
That's a core divergence right there.
Mm.
It really hints at potentially vastly different underlying realities they're operating in.
That's a massive disconnect, isn't it? One framework posits the fundamental energetic architecture, and the other, it just doesn't seem to register in their firsthand accounts.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move to something closely related. Our own DNA and its potential. Ashayana Deane speaks of this dormant 12-strand DNA potential.
Yes, that's central to her teachings. The idea that humans have this latent potential for 12, maybe even more, strands of DNA. The diamond sun template, she calls it.
Okay, and most of us aren't using it.
Right. She suggests that because of historical interference, most people only use a fraction of this capacity.
So the freedom teachings offer ways to activate it.
Yeah, various spiritual techniques intended to activate these dormant strands.
And the result is supposed to be?
Supposedly, unlocking what we'd call paranormal abilities, expanding consciousness, and ultimately ascension. Reconnecting with higher dimensional aspects of ourselves.
Right. And she even identified a specific period for this, didn't she?
She did. The period between 2000 and 2017. That was flagged as a crucial ascension cycle for this evolutionary leap.
Okay, so a time when humanity was supposedly poised for a mass spiritual upgrade through inner work and these practices.
That's the essence of it. Now, when we look at the SSP accounts regarding DNA, well, it's a dramatically different picture.
Different as in fewer guided meditations and more genetic labs.
Precisely. Genetic augmentation comes up a lot in their testimonies, but it's consistently portrayed as external, technological.
How so?
Penny Bradley and Leah Akrish, for instance, they've talked about being subjected to MyLab, military abduction,
Right.
genetic experiments.
Right.
Their DNA was altered in labs, not through spiritual work. The goal was enhancing psychic abilities, maybe adapting them for off-world environments.
Sounds pretty invasive.
They often describe it as invasive and traumatic, a far cry from the empowering, self-directed evolution in Keylontic Science.
So instead of unlocking inherent potential, their DNA was being actively manipulated from the outside.
It points to a fundamentally different understanding of human potential, doesn't it?
It certainly seems to. And what about that 2017 Ascension window? Did the SSP insiders notice a global spiritual awakening? People suddenly getting superpowers?
The contradiction here is stark. They reported no such widespread spiritual DNA upgrades, no emergence of godlike powers during that time. Take Tony Rodriguez, for example. He continued to have physical problems, needed medical help throughout his SSP service, even during and after this supposed ascension cycle.
That directly clashes with the idea of self-healing through DNA activation.
Absolutely. The promised transformation on a global scale, it just wasn't observed by those operating inside these secret programs. It raises serious questions about the validity of that timeline, at least as experienced in their reality.
A powerful point. It's almost like these two groups were experiencing entirely different versions of human evolution.
Feels that way sometimes.
Okay, next step. The question of who, if anyone, is looking out for humanity. On a cosmic level, Ashayana Deane talks a lot about the Guardian Alliance.
Right. In Keylontic Science, the Guardian Alliance is depicted as this huge coalition, highly evolved, benevolent, interdimensional races.
Like who?
Groups like the Lyran Syrian Elders are mentioned. Their purpose is supposedly to protect developing worlds, like Earth.
And how do they operate?
Primarily from higher dimensional planes, working subtly, inspiring positive spiritual movements, intervening discreetly at critical times. Ashayana presents them, especially the MCEO, the Melchizedek Cloister Emerald Order, as the true protectors.
Guiding us towards a positive ascension. Interesting, she's suspicious of some galactic federations, though.
Yes, that's a point she makes. Now, compare that to Penny Bradley. She also mentioned guardians, but her description sounded quite different.
How so?
What's fascinating is the stark contrast. Penny's guardians are described as a specific ET species, the Canids.
Canids, like wolves.
Bipedal, wolf-like race, according to her account. They provide her with direct personal protection. It's much more immediate individual.
That is different.
And she also talks about interactions with a Council of Five, a galactic justice council that apparently hands out physical punishment to abusers.
Wow, okay. That's very active intervention, not subtle guidance.
Exactly. Wolf-like protectors giving personal help versus a vast interdimensional alliance working through inspiration. Quite a divergence in scale and approach.
Definitely. What about the other SSP whistleblowers? Do their experiences fit either model?
We see a spectrum, really. Daryl James, for instance, reported positive interactions with Nordic-looking ETs.
Which might fit a Galactic Federation type, the kind Ashayana is cautious about.
Potentially, yes. Tony Rodriguez mentions getting occasional help from friendly ETs. But here's the thing. None of the SSP whistleblowers explicitly mention the specific guardian races from Ashayana's teachings.
And Penny's Canids don't show up in Ashayana's Guardian Alliance framework.
Correct. So the identity, the nature of these guardians, it's a major point of difference.
It certainly sounds like it. And you have people like Donald Marshall and the late Max Spires who were skeptical about benevolent saviors anyway.
Right. Donald's question is poignant. If these powerful, benevolent guardians exist, why do the horrific abuses within the secret programs keep happening unchecked?
That's a huge challenge to the idea of an all-powerful but subtly intervening protective force like Ashayana describes.
It really is. It makes you question the effectiveness, maybe even the unified existence of a guardian presence in the way Keylontic Science presents it. Who are they? What's their real scope? Do they even have a unified agenda?
So many questions. Okay, let's shift focus now to the big picture, the structure of reality itself. Ashayana Deane outlines a 15-dimensional time matrix.
Yes. Keylontic Science describes a highly organized, fundamentally benevolent universe, structured as this 15-dimensional time matrix arranged in harmonic layers.
Harmonic layers. Okay.
Earth, in this model, is in the lower dimensions. But there are higher vibrational versions of Earth in higher dimensions.
And souls evolve through these dimensions.
That's the idea. Souls incarnate evolve upwards through these dimensional layers. Ascension means expanding consciousness up that scale.
And time isn't linear.
Nonlinear, yes. Multiple timelines converging during specific ascension cycles. The overarching idea is positive guidance for Earth's timeline. There's even mention of things like the Ark of the Covenant for potential evacuations to safer timelines.
It sounds very ordered, Optimistic, even.
It is. Very structured. Now, how does this compare to the universe perceived by the SSP whistleblowers?
I'm guessing differently.
Significantly different. Their accounts paint a picture of a universe that feels predominantly physical. Teeming with diverse ET civilizations, yes, but lacking that clear, orderly dimensional structure in the Keylontic sense.
So when they say dimensions,
It's often used more generally, maybe referring to different locations, densities of space, perhaps parallel realities accessed via tech, but not within that strict 15D framework with its specific harmonic laws.
the 5 harmonic universes concept from Keylontics isn't mentioned.
Conspicuously absent from their testimonies. So less of a precise cosmic staircase.
Yeah.
More of a, well, what analogy works for you?
Maybe like a vast, uncharted ocean, lots of different islands, currents, some known, many unknown.
That's a fitting analogy, I think. And when we talk about time, the divergences get even sharper.
How so?
The Montauk Project. Archive Ra experienced it firsthand. It's presented as a stark example of deliberate attempts, human and ET, to manipulate timelines using advanced tech.
Which contrasts sharply with timelines being governed just by cosmic law or guardians.
Exactly. While Ashayana mentions Montauk as, like, a contained negative Illuminati thing, SSP accounts often suggest much bigger, lasting effects. Potential splinter timelines created by this tech.
So humans actively messing with the timeline, not just being guided along it.
Right, trying to rewrite the rules.
Yeah.
And then there's Ashayana's prediction that significant timeline shift, potential mass ascension around 2012.
Yeah, what about that? How does that stack up against SST accounts?
This is a really critical point of contradiction. The SSP whistleblowers who were active then and after, they reported no observable global ascension event. No widespread cataclysmic shift like some interpretations predicted.
So business as usual in the secret programs?
Pretty much. Their accounts consistently describe a continuation of clandestine programs, ongoing secrecy, the same power dynamics they saw before 2012. There's definitely a sentiment in the SSP community. Skepticism towards prophecies that don't pan out, often explained away with alternate timelines.
Penny Bradley has criticized that, right?
She has, quite vocally. Criticizing using that as a convenient excuse, she emphasizes verifiable reality. So the Great Ascension timeline just didn't seem to happen from their vantage point.
It's almost like they were living in a fundamentally different temporal reality.
It really does seem that way. And while some SSP accounts do mention parallel timelines or alternate Earths,
Like in the 20 and back program.
exactly, but there's no mention of the spiritually segregated ascended versus fallen Earth scenarios that Ashayana's teachings describe.
So overall, Keylontic cosmology. Structured, optimistic, SSP view, more improvisational, maybe opportunistic, focused on power and tech.
That sums it up well. It raises that profound question. Is the universe run by inherent spiritual law and a divine plan? Or is it more about might makes right through advanced technology?
A very different underlying philosophy in each worldview, it seems.
Definitely. Now let's dig into galactic politics as seen by these two sources. Ashayana Deane paints a pretty clear picture, good versus evil on a cosmic scale.
Yes, Keylontic Science has this distinct polarity, often emphasized. The Guardian Alliance and their allies are the good guys,
Right.
locked in this ancient conflict with fallen angelic factions, like the Thothian, Luciferian, Anunnaki, Draconians. They're often blamed for Earth's problem.
And she talks about treaty efforts
Yeah.
too, right? Galactic governance structures.
Yeah, things like the Emerald Covenant, the Interdimensional Association of Free Worlds, IAFW, all aimed at helping humanity ascend positively, resolving these big conflicts. So, a grand cosmic battle, light versus dark. How does that compare with the SSP accounts?
Well, the SSP accounts tend to show a much messier, more morally ambiguous landscape.
Messy.
A complex web of shifting alliances, conflicts, often lacking that clear-cut good versus evil polarization.
Can you give an example?
Penny Bradley's own experiences, serving in the Dark Fleet, which she says was allied with the Reiko entities, and fighting other human factions in the solar system.
So, not simple good versus evil from her perspective at the time.
Not at all. She later realized that pretty much every group involved tends to have its own self-serving narrative. Each sees itself as the hero in its own story.
So less of a straightforward cosmic chess game, more like a multi-sided power struggle with constantly changing teams.
That captures it well. A very different picture.
And what about humans interacting with ET groups, making deals?
Many SSP testimonies describe exactly that. Human factions making deals with various ETs, trading tech, resources, getting strategic advantages.
Like the treaties with Greys or the Nazi-Draco alliances people talk about.
Exactly. Those accounts align with Ashayana's claims of negative ET influence. But the SSP witnesses often give more sort of mundane operational details, less about the spiritual motivations.
And noticeably, not much mention of Ashayana's guardians stepping in to stop these deals.
That's often missing, yes. Which raises that question again. If this benevolent alliance is so powerful, why haven't they demonstrably stopped these negative alliances?
A crucial point. And what about the Galactic Federation? We mentioned Ashayana is skeptical.
Right, and this is another big area of divergence. While Ashayana expresses caution, many SSP and contactee narratives portray a galactic federation of worlds as real and largely benevolent.
Like Daryl James's Nordics.
They could potentially fit that category, yes. And even within the SSP community itself, there's often skepticism towards any unverified ET group, positive or negative claims notwithstanding.
Max Spears was critical of the Blue Avians, for example.
Exactly. That narrative often aligns with the Galactic Federation concept in some circles. So the idea of a single, unified galactic entity, whether it's good or bad, it seems challenged by the diverse, often conflicting SSP experiences.
It really highlights how hard it is to get a clear picture of galactic politics from down here.
It does. And it leads us really to some pretty direct contradictions between these two ways of understanding our cosmic reality.
Okay, let's summarize those key contradictions.
Indeed. When we lay them out, several key areas just jump out. First, as we discussed, the very identity and nature of guardians. Fundamentally different.
Penny Bradley's real guardians, the Kanids, providing personal protection.
Versus Ashayana's vast interdimensional guardian alliance working on a much larger, subtler scale. Are they even aware of each other? Operating in separate spheres? We don't know.
Then the timeline issue, that's a big one.
Huge. Ashayana's predicted 2017 Ascension window didn't visibly happen as described. That clashes directly with the SSP whistleblowers reporting continued, often harrowing operations during and after that time.
And Penny Bradley's criticism about using alternate timelines to excuse failed prophecies really hits that point home.
Absolutely. Then there's the nature of the evidence itself. It differs significantly.
SSP accounts offer specific details, tech, places, sometimes physical scars, though hard to verify.
Whereas Keylontic Science relies more on, let's say, spiritual insights, channeled information, subjective experiences.
Donald Marshall, trying to give tech explanations for spiritual encounters, offers a really contrasting view on reality itself.
It does. And what about ancient history? Cosmic origins.
Another contradiction.
Conflicting cosmic histories, yes. Ashayana's detailed stories of Atlantis, Lemuria, their role in the cosmic drama. They don't consistently line up with the varied accounts, or sometimes the total lack of mention, from SSP insiders.
And Max Spires had his own different occult take on Atlantis, too.
Exactly. It leaves you wondering which version, if any, reflects true history.
It's like trying to build a jigsaw puzzle, but the pieces from one box just don't fit the other box.
Precisely. And then there's this tension. Spiritual hierarchy versus rogue science.
Meaning?
Keylontic Science asserts these universal spiritual laws, but the SSP accounts describe cloning, consciousness transfer, timeline manipulation, things that seem to defy those laws.
Like the 20 and back phenomenon.
Right. That doesn't seem to have a clear explanation within the Keylontic framework. It suggests advanced tech might sometimes be able to bypass or even violate these natural orders.
So the potential for beings to act outside the supposed cosmic rules. And finally, the overall narrative.
Exactly. Ashayana's teachings present a narrative with clear heroes. Herself, the Guardian Alliance, working for a positive future.
But Penny Bradley's caution.
Her observation that every group sees itself as the hero, that's a crucial reminder. Be skeptical of any single all-encompassing cosmology, including Keylontics.
It encourages us to look at multiple perspectives, think critically about these grand narratives.
Absolutely.
So we end up with these two very distinct ways of seeing the cosmos, humanity's role, who might be influencing us. One is spiritual, top-down. The other, experiential, bottom-up, based on reported interactions in tech.
And the SSP testimonies do present some really significant challenges to certain aspects of Keylontic Science, especially regarding guardians, timelines, and the fundamental nature of reality as experienced by people supposedly in these programs.
It really hammers home the need for careful discernment when we encounter these kinds of complex, sometimes mind-bending narratives. It feels unlikely that either perspective, just by itself, holds the complete truth.
That's a crucial insight, I think. Maybe a more nuanced understanding lies in seeing that elements of both could be valid.
How so?
Maybe there are higher dimensional forces, like Ashayana describes, and also more tangible ET involvement, like the SSP Insiders report.
So both could be happening?
It's conceivable. Maybe humans have that inherent potential Keylontic talks about, but we're also subject to external manipulation via tech. Maybe spiritual laws exist, but advanced tech has found ways to disrupt or bypass them sometimes.
So what might this teach us about now and our future?
Well, this comparison really compels you, the listener, to engage critically with the information you get. How do these contrasting views change how you see current world events, the narratives around them?
What can we learn by looking at these wildly different takes on who's influencing things?
Exactly. Instead of just passively accepting one explanation, think about how these puzzle pieces might fit together, or why they don't.
It feels like we're being called to be active investigators of our own reality, not just passive consumers.
Precisely. And it leaves us with a final thought to chew on. How do these contrasting views ultimately shape your understanding of humanity's potential and the challenges we face?
Are we just waiting for external saviors?
Or is our future more dependent on our own critical awareness, our ability to sort truth from fiction, and our collective actions based on that understanding?
It's an invitation, really.
An invitation to keep exploring, keep questioning your assumptions, and actively participate in shaping our collective future, rather than just relying on any single narrative, no matter how compelling it might seem.